joined us online for this cross-industry mentorship webinar. Very pleased to have you with us. This is really a fascinating program that I'm very pleased to have the Chamber associated with. For those of you who may not know, this is the second cycle that we're beginning here, and it all began last year at the board level in the Chamber, when it was recognized that we need to do more for the business community in preparing for the next generation of leaders here in China. Many companies are underprepared, and yet at the same time, there are many talents out there that are vying and would make great contributions to our member companies, and quite frankly, also to the Chamber. We're always looking for new leaders in the Chamber as well. So in our first cycle, we focused on the lack of gender diversity in our member companies, and so we focused on female leadership, helping to promote and generate more attention and focus on young female talents in their companies and how they can grow through this mentorship program. I was very pleased to join last week a breakfast roundtable that we had, where we had mentee speaking on her experience in the first phase of this program. And it really got me thinking about our organization. And yes, the European Chamber is focused on improving the business environment, market access, and regulatory facilitation for our member companies. But this program really showed me how we can make an impact on individuals, on their lives, and on people. And I was very, very, again, touched to hear the experience of a young lady, Gloria, sharing her experience with our president, who is a mentor in this program, and how she, having been through several mentorship programs before, really found that this one with the European Chamber was really quite special and unique. And so today we're very privileged to have with us Laurie O'Donnell, a great HR expert and mentor in the community here, speaking to our Vice President and one of our advisory council members who are also in the first phase, who are going to share their experiences from a member perspective. So again, I'm super, super pleased that we've got members in the community that are interested and are participating in this program. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Laurie O'Donnell from Cornerstone. Thank you for your support in this initiative from day one and your continuation with our phase 2. Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you, Adam. Well, good morning, everyone. Pleased this morning to have Charlotte Roux, who is the CEO of NG China and the VP of the European Chamber. Warm welcome, Charlotte. And Denis Despaux, who is Global Managing Director Greater China, and Head of Asia for Roland Berger. Thank you both. I ask you maybe to take a moment or two and perhaps begin with you, Charlotte. Just tell us a wee bit about what you're doing.
Okay, thank you very much, Laurie. So actually, I am CEO of NG China. You mentioned it. So I have, just to give you a bit of background, I have been working in the energy sector for more than 20 years now. And NG, the company I'm working in, is developing clean energy infrastructures and solutions. So meaning renewable power infrastructure, meaning district decentralized solutions such as district heating, district cooling. We do also e-mobility, energy efficiency, and that's what we develop in China. So we have a presence, a significant presence in solar, in e-mobility, and all decentralized activity. And I am also Vice President of the EU Chamber of Commerce in China, which is a great pleasure because it adds so that's not my day job, as we already put it, but it adds a nice part about how you can influence, advocate for an environment that is better suited for our business objective, which is really going for carbon neutrality.
Thank you. And Denis, will you tell us a wee bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Denis. So I'm one of the three global managing directors of Roland Berger. Roland Berger is a consulting firm. It's probably the only global consulting firm with a European origin. You were nice enough, Laurie, to call it Roland Berger, but it's actually a German company by origin. Mr. Berger would probably not pronounce
Yeah, he
it.
has something to say.
Like Charlotte, I started my professional life in the energy sector. I was with French Energy EDF, a competitor of mentee, in China for a few years, and then in France, and then I decided to move to consulting. So I've been a consultant for 22 or 23 years, and managing Roland Berger in Asia and China for 6 years out of Shanghai. I was privileged to be elected one of the global MDs of Roland Berger earlier this year. So basically, at probably the worst possible moment in the economy, or at least in the 50 years of economy that I can know about, to take the leadership of a company when all the figures for ourselves and for our clients were basically falling apart. But luckily, they're back to at least to a certain normality. So that's what I do.
Terrific. Thank you both. So I think it will be interesting for people who maybe have very little experience with mentoring to hear a wee bit about your experiences, especially since we're coming into the second cycle and you were both mentors in the first cycle. So, you know, Charlotte, maybe we could begin with a question for you. Why do you believe that mentoring is effective?
So actually, there are a few elements in there. Why is it effective? It depends first and foremost about the people involved. You need to prepare for mentoring, and both sides are preparing. The mentee needs to prepare to clarify what she wants to achieve, what are the questions that it may raise, what type of support she may need. And the mentor obviously is preparing as well. And so what you build from that is a relationship based on trust that allows the mentee to take a step back from the situation she is living and to take a wider perspective. The fact that we are proposing a cross-industry mentorship initiative is also in this respect a bit specific, because we won't have to go, if you like, on topics very specific to a group or a company. We can get out of the, I would say, the whispers that are heard over there, but really taking more neutral view and supporting in the development in that respect. So to me, it's really about preparing, building that bond, that trust relationship, and then being able to, with this step back, taking a wider perspective to know how to better approach some specific topics that maybe we are going to detail a bit later.
So, Denis, tell us a little bit about your experience as a mentor.
Yeah, I strongly believe in mentoring because I've been a mentee myself for many years. I mean, consulting organizations have internal mentoring programs for forever, and so I think as soon as I joined Roland Berger 20 years ago, I was assigned a mentor, and I think I've exhausted a number of mentors actually through the years. I believe in the experience sharing. Whether it's the same industry, so that's internal mentoring, whether it's different industry. I think it's good sometimes, as Charlotte was saying, to have a bit of perspective and step back and helicopter view and to talk to somebody else. It's good to have a privileged relationship to talk to somebody based on trust. I think the mentor needs to have the courage to say things that maybe the mentee doesn't want to hear. And only a trusted relationship can achieve that purpose. But I think it's very highly effective. I mean, how many leaders are not good leaders or even become bad leaders because nobody was able to confront them and tell them what's wrong. And sometimes it's small things, sometimes it's big things, sometimes it's very personal, sometimes it's more professional or content driven. But if it doesn't get said, I mean, you can live through many years with the same flows. And one last point. I think people can feel lonely even in big organizations. because they don't get to talk about certain things with other people.
Mhm.
So having the opportunity, it doesn't always work, I think, in mentoring relationship. But I think having somebody you can basically disclose your conflicts with people, your career questions, maybe your outside career question, which obviously is impossible to discuss internally, is always a blessing. So I think that's how I view some of the many values of mentoring.
You talked about trust, and one of the questions that I have is, was it easy to build a bond, to build the trust? One ask both of you, but Charlotte, why don't you answer that?
Actually, yes, there was really no difficulty on that, and I think we started both. I mean, I was mentioning preparation. I mean, answering your first question, it's also about how much you share about you. I really like what Denis said about experience sharing, about sometimes feeling lonely or at least not able to share everything. And we started the first meeting with that, really by better understanding each other, who we were, where we came from, because it's really a two-way relationship, and I think that's important. And so we had no issue with my mentee to build that trust. Actually, we we got along very well. But yeah, it was never a question, and I think we both went there being motivated, being willing to know the other person in front of us, and willing to build something with her because we were both women. So, so yes, that was really positive. I also want to emphasize, because I think this goes with not building the trust but reinforcing it. What Denis was mentioning about what I would call constructive feedback. And
Yes.
the fact that we are not in the same company, and especially not in a manager's position, obviously as a manager, I do constructive feedback. But then when some things are maybe more difficult to be heard, you have a sort of bias, whether when you are saying it or when you are receiving it. Here, the relationship is far clearer, and so it helps reinforcing further the trust.
Yeah, I would say that this program being external to the companies that participate, yet sponsored by an institution, I think helps a lot, because so there is immediate trust, or at least that's how I felt it, simply because there's nothing at stake, right? I mean, when I first met my mentees, this is somebody I didn't know before, working for an organization that is famous enough that I knew the organization, but I had no, let's say, direct or easy ties with that organization. And so it was, so that helps a lot. So sort of I think the neutrality factor, the independence factor is important in a mentoring relationship. I think our first meeting, we also were able to have a nice lunch, which basically extended, I think, double the time schedule, the time that was scheduled. And the lunch component is a French touch to mentoring, but it was a Cantonese restaurant though. So I think it also helps. I mean, building trust takes time, right? And so in a program like this, where obviously you're not a mentor of the same person for multiple years, which I think is sometimes the case, you need to quickly build a relationship and get people to talk and to in fact reveal what the real issues are. And when I say issues, I don't necessarily mean negative issues, but whatever is at stake and what needs to be addressed, rather than let's say having a polite yet quite distant talk. So that was not difficult. But I think that's very important up front to make sure that it's successful.
And from what you're telling us, it seems like an amazing experience to be a mentee in this program. But for yourselves as mentors, was it rewarding, Charlotte?
Oh yeah, I would argue that it's an amazing experience as mentor as well, actually, because in a way for you as well, you take some time out of your, you know, day-to-day activity to focus on someone else, someone that you appreciate, someone you want to accompany. And it, I mean, when I was speaking about taking a step back, getting a global perspective, obviously it is also useful for us as mentors. It gives us a different approach. It can ring a bell in some case with some situations, whether we are either we are facing ourselves or we saw with other people in the organization, and maybe because we didn't know enough, we felt we could have helped more, or that kind of thing. So to me, it's a very rewarding relationship, very rewarding experience. It's very nice also to be able to share, to have at least the feeling. I hope I hope we achieve the reason of being of some support, being able to bring that different perspective, to share on what could be done, what could be the steps, and there are a wide range of options. Again, I would emphasize, because I think it's important, what Denise mentioned very initially, being cross-industry is also being able to discuss about anything, what is in the company in all confidentiality, and we signed an agreement on that. I mean, what is discussed between us remains between us. We give no report. There is nothing that will go out, unless there is a willingness of the mentee, obviously, but that's a different story. But then really you can really think about any topics that would come to the mind of the mentee to support her development. Then for her to prepare, my mentee, she definitely prepared very well. So she had in mind what she wanted to achieve. She had in mind the steps or the questions she had. And when she was not clear, because it always happens to all of us, I mean, I would say the mentor in a way as a role, which is also rewarding and funny. When you play the child and you go with the why question, and why that, and but tell me more, why, and it's quite interesting actually to build this questionnaire, if I could say it this way, and then build the answer together, which is the most important.
Wow. And Denis, please answer too.
Yeah. Well, I definitely found it rewarding. Now, I also, and maybe I'll start with that, I found it challenging, actually. I think I had a bit of a different experience than Charlotte in that a lot of the questions we discussed were a bit more transactional, as in sort of immediate choke points and decision points in career moves and let's say positioning issues, all very interesting, but actually very challenging. And I'm I'm a consultant, so I'm used to having people asking me questions about a variety of topics, but normally I'm quite well equipped, either myself or through my teams. In this case, sometimes I was feeling like, okay, my God, I simply don't know what to do. What would I? So then, I mean, where I think it's also rewarding for the mentor is then the usual approach is analytics. So because I'm a consultant, so I've got to sort of break down the problem in bits and pieces that I can make simple enough that I can answer. And then what would I do in this situation? Which I find very rewarding, because in some cases it sort of rings a bell. So when I'm thinking, okay, what do I do in this situation if I've confronted with an issue with my leader? What do I do? And then, by the way, it reminds me that probably this issue exists with some of the people that report to me, or report to people who report to me. And so it's starting some thinking. I mean, beyond the mentoring itself, it's starting some quite rewarding thinking around leadership issues. That might have gone overseen, to say it very politely, and I find that, even though it's challenging, again, I find that quite educative. I think I took away some of the issues that I've discussed. I took away as useful input into my own organization and managerial practices. It's also the opportunity to ask questions, you know. So I mean, as a mentor, I'm also using the mentee as a sounding board to my own questions. Maybe it's an abuse of the program, but that's what I do.
I want to ask you a couple of practical questions too. I mean, with COVID, were you meeting your mentees? Well, you had lunch. We know you met your mentee, but I was wondering if, you know, meeting virtually was a part of something to be dealt with, or were there any challenges there? Or actually, did you meet virtually? Maybe you met face to face.
So on my side, actually, we mainly met face to face, but indeed with COVID, we did face some issue. And what was interesting is that I think the relationship was built enough at that point in time already, because it went very quickly in terms of building trust, that we wanted to have those meetings despite COVID. And so we managed to organize. We have all kind of tools, whether it is WeChat or you name that. I mean, it's now we are all, I think, very professional in this respect.
Yes.
And then it was not that much an issue because we knew each other. I think it would have been more of an issue if we didn't have met, didn't meet before, actually. But knowing each other, having had already quite some meetings, it was like, in a way, catching up with a friend, still trying to get some focus, because I must admit also that with COVID, obviously, we went also on other topics, and you always ask about the health, I mean, your counterpart, the family, etc. But it went very well. And as soon as we could meet again in person, and actually, it was not that long, the time where we couldn't meet face to face. I think we had one meeting online, but for the rest, we managed to meet really. Then obviously there was still this appetite to meet, to discuss, to progress together. So that was, I mean, being online because we knew each other was not an issue.
Hmm. And was it the same for you, Denis, or did you mostly meet face to face?
No, I think same experience. I think we met face to face a couple of times, and then the rest was on the phone, actually. Also, well, I wouldn't say it's because of COVID. It was more because of the nature of questions. Maybe it was a bit more of a sense of emergency or support, I think. So that played a role. As well, and I must admit that COVID played another role by making scheduling a bit more difficult. Let's say a lot of pressure on operational tasks. But yeah, same experience. I think it's not a problem once you have met over lunch or the other venue.
The lunch is important.
I would insist on
lunch. Down in the booklet.
Lunch is the key success factor. I would say that it's not a problem.
Okay. You know, the name of the program, it's an ambitious program to support someone into a very senior executive role. And I was thinking that as you approached it, and you know, Charlotte, what are some of the key skills that you were preparing that you wanted to share with women or your mentee in this program? Was there something on your mind that you wanted to deliver?
Actually, first of all, I always feel very humble in that kind of situation because, I mean, we are mentoring, but as Denis said, we are also learning in some case or question on our experience. And on our own anyway, we may have questions or challenges, so we don't have all the answers. And I think that's important to have in mind. So mentoring and working on some key questions, it's in this case, it's, as you said, it's all about leadership. What can you bring there? You can, and we discussed a lot about that, you can help taking a step back, getting a wider perspective. So you need to have your mentee driving through maybe some question of organization, how things work, if there is question on the decision-making process. I mean, you can go to how many details they want to share with you, but then if there is this willingness, you need to get this understanding. And then it's, I mean, having this global perspective is certainly, or wider perspective is certainly an ability that I think we need to work on in order not to be too much driven by emotions or frustration in some case, and rather having an objective, and an objective that we would understand as being multiple paths. You may have an objective and you have a path that is what you had in mind, and then you realize that because the organization is a bit complex, it might be a bit different. You might have to take different roles that you didn't have in mind initially, because that would complete your experience and your credibility. So that's the kind of thing we may have in mind. But then we are not really career advisors. So another point to me which is important is about really making the mentee understand, and generally, at least my mentee was quite clear, I think, on that already, on what are our strengths and the points on which she may develop. And why I'm mentioning that, it's because it's all about also being yourself. I mean, you are not going to change, you can improve your skills, but your personality, I mean, it is yours, and it's also what makes your value. So you need to understand how it fits in the global picture. And the last point I would like to mention, but I think for those of you in the audience who attend today and may have attended the breakfast with Jörg and Gloria. So Jörg Rutke is our president at the EU Chamber, and Gloria Jo was his mentee in cycle 1. There is a podcast that you can listen to, and they were discussing of that kind of thing, also like very specific topic, like how do you liaise with EU headquarters? So obviously you know how to liaise, you know how to take your phone, but the point is, how do you make China better understand in a context that is getting probably tougher? So that can be also a very practical question, because it will support your business. I mean, if HQ says, well, I don't trust China, I don't understand anything about China, you do have an issue with your business, hence with your career as well. So it's really a wide range from wider perspective, getting to know yourself and remaining yourself, and then specific issue, but that are important on how do you make the bridge between China and the EU.
Denis, did you have a preparation in your own, like, did you have ideas before you went into the program, and was the experience different from what you anticipated?
Yeah, well, I probably didn't, but I learned on the way, and now I'm learning. But I'd like to share a few things. I think building on what Charlotte has said, authenticity, I think, is important. Is one of the things that so being yourself, I think, to take the expression that Charlotte has used, is one of the things that I would definitely push. Different people have different capabilities, different features, different personal features in organizations that are very processed, and I think some of the companies that we're talking about are very processed. People's capabilities beyond a certain level are quite standardized. So everybody has pretty much the same capabilities, managerial capabilities, technical capabilities pertaining to their job. So what makes a difference is actually the more personal features of people. And my observation sometimes is that people try to sort of conceal this, and not to be that, not to be so if you're trying to conceal what you really are, then you're not actually making a difference with other people, which I think to make a move in career, to be a good leader, is the exact opposite of what should be done. To be a good leader, you need to be yourself. You need to basically use your own character. At least that's how I view it. I might be wrong, but that has worked for me. So it should work for other people. The second thing I would like to share is we're in a female, in a woman mentoring program, woman leadership mentoring program. That's a bit challenging. I think it's at least I see it here in China as a bit challenging, because China is a bit of a merit-based organization, and the woman component is not necessarily recognized as something that people should sort of identify and specifically address. I mean, in my own organization, I've had that difficulty at times with our HR people here in China, to sort of convince them that it was not a bad thing to look at women leadership, because we don't have a diversity issue. We actually are even have, I think, more female than male in the organization. But then when it comes to it goes to the higher ranks of the organization, so the leadership, we're losing quite a number of women, and I think that's a problem, and we need to address that problem. The problem is not as big here as it is in other parts of the organization, but it's still a problem. But then recognizing it as a problem is a bit anti-cultural here in China, and I think we need to be very careful. So in mentoring, to sort of also take into account the fact that, okay, you have to win whatever position with your own merit. And I mean, that would be true everywhere. It's even more true here because of that, let's say, maybe particular cultural tweak. So that's one thing that I would also insist on. And the last thing, which is difficult for me as a man to say, but let me try. The last thing is, okay, what is it to be a female leader? I mean, I don't know, obviously. Charlotte can certainly elaborate. But again, if you are yourself and there are distinctive features that a woman has and that a man doesn't have, I think that has to be leveraged. I'm not sure it's so different, and so it's probably more personal features than gender related. At least that would be my interpretation. But I think it deserves some thinking. So it's really thinking, okay, what is it that I have that can make a difference with other people? I'm not necessarily talking about competition, but I'm just talking about being effective in leadership, being effective management. I mean, I think some female leaders are actually very tough because they want to demonstrate that they're tougher than men. I would not regard this as very effective, but if it works, it works. On the contrary, some female leaders, I think, are using probably more empathy that some male leaders do not have to make a difference. And so I don't have a recipe, obviously. I have only observations, and I'm ill-placed to judge. But I think it's more asking questions and sort of pointing out, okay, what is distinctive and what is it that you have in the toolbox that you can leverage effectively to make progress?
Well, I wanted to, I think it's connected to what you're saying there, Denis. You know, this program is different from other programs. You know, there is a distinction in that it is with purpose. People are in different industries that they're talking to each other. And so I want to explore that a little bit. Charlotte, what do you think the benefit is? And does that address a little bit what Denis is saying, release us from some of the tensions within an industry or in an environment and look at skills in a more purely for the skill of the individual? Have I understood that correctly, Charlotte? Maybe you could elaborate.
Yeah, I think it's really part of the program to be able to appreciate and assess someone not based on a given organization, on maybe existing succession planning, we don't know them, but really on skills and personality. And that's quite interesting, first of all for us, because we get to know better the person, but also for the mentee to realize that her skills, her personality, they are of interest, I would say generally speaking. And we are not advocating for mentees to go out of their current company, obviously, but it's always important to better understand how you position yourself, and that again, there are elements on which you need to work on, some questions you need to think about and find your own answers. But at the end of the day, you have also a value, and meaning by that, I mean just personal value that is of interest, whatever the industry. Maybe one additional point: when we work on matching applicants for mentorship and mentors, we try at least to find, some kind of proximity. So first, we avoid any competition, of course. So we have some energy industry, if I speak for my side, for cycle one. So obviously we won't match those ones, although they might have, I mean, a lot to share, but that would be at the end of the day an uncomfortable sharing, and so that's it. But second, really the idea is to see, for instance, if we have someone, so that's a real example actually, a mentee willing to access to a CFO position. So we had the treasurer at EXCO of the EU chamber, and we matched them together, and it was an interesting matching actually. So,
wow.
So that's the kind of thing we are. I mean, it doesn't always work as easily in terms of matching experience, but the idea is really that there is a connection, and that from that you can see that your questions are not only your questions, that you are not alone with them, and that yes, you can definitely find your own way.
You know, one of the things is when we look at the support that women need in order to advance into very, very senior roles. I was wondering, Denis, you know, what inside view or suggestion would you share with a mentee that would get the greatest benefit, you know, if they had that clear objective? Oh, we've lost him.
Just
Abandoned us on our question. So I'll ask you, Charlotte. You know, you spoke about someone who had a very clear idea of what what the mentee wished to achieve, and maybe you've shared some indication of what would be the greatest benefit. But how would you, you know, what would you want to share with a mentee who wants to get the greatest benefit from this program?
In a way, I think we can sum it up in one word, and I take the feedback from our mentees, also from cycle one: prepare. This is something we offer you. So really get prepared, get to understand the program, get to know what you want to achieve with that, and be clear. Be clear with yourself, be clear with your mentor, and I quite liked also what Denis was mentioning, and he's not there, so I'm really free. But about women leadership, and you were also speaking about that part. I mean, don't be a victim. You are bending your own path. So it's up to you to know where you are, what you want to achieve, how you will do that, and just be clear about the fact that, and that's what we try to explore. There is not one single answer, and because of life, because I mean we saw that just for cycle one. I mean we just had COVID-19 all around the world, so obviously it changed many plans, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that because because I remember, but quite a while ago, and having a discussion with a woman, and she had a very clear path in her mind, but it was a single path. And so the moment that path derails, actually, because that's what happens in life, nobody goes exactly as per your plans, then there is no other option. There are always other options. So really, if you want to get the most of this program, get prepared and be open.
You know, when someone shares their view with you, how can the program itself, you know, help women who aspire to move beyond boundaries? Oh, there he is. He's back. There we go.
Sorry about that. It's one of my tricks with these video conferences when you don't want to answer a question.
You just disappear. There you go. All right, I have another one for you here.
I didn't hear the question, so there's no suspicion that I was trying to avoid anything because I didn't hear the question.
So can I guess the program, but I guess for yourself as a mentor, support women who aspire to go beyond boundaries, you know, and lead organizations, as you both do. You lead organizations. How do we support women who want to do that?
So the question is for Denis or?
Denis.
Okay. The honest answer is I don't know. Because there's no, I don't think there is one, I don't think that there is one recipe that would fit any kind of organization. So I think it has to rely on a dialogue and understanding, as I said before, I think understanding the specific features of the person. I have a relatively agnostic approach to this. As I said, I think I do recognize that there are woman-specific leadership features around drive, determination, especially in a lot of organizations that I see as clients. Also a bit of survival skills in adverse male environments. And so this has built something into these persons when they go up the executive ladder. But then there is no recipe. It's how you nicely leverage this into something different. That's the first point. The second point is, I think there is one thing that is extremely valuable and not often recognized, which is the network of female leaders. Which is a sort of natural connection, which is quite often ignored, but can definitely be leveraged. And that's something that we are encouraging in our company, also to share a bit more specific experience and probably more around career progression, so a bit more transactional, but also longer term view. And so I think one interesting aspect is also to connect with other female leaders or aspiring leaders that have a different experience, different stages, and can simply share their experience. But again, I would really be I would not have a generic answer on this one.
So we've got a few more minutes and then we want to take questions. I just want to remind people that if you have a question, there are two areas I see that people are putting questions. There's a Q&A section at the bottom, and also you can put it into the chat. I have I have the question. I think it's quite important, and Charlotte, would you participate again in this program?
Oh, that one is an easy one, actually. I'm participating again, so yes.
And tell us why.
For all the reasons that we explained. I mean, I feel it's first of all, we want, and on that I take also my hat as a EU chamber. We want to contribute to support our members in the development of their talents. So that's a very generic stance, but that's an important one. We want to be part of that, so we commit to that for our members. But secondly, and I think that's what we shared extensively, it's a very rewarding experience, and I hope it is for mentees. Apparently, they were quite happy on cycle 1, but it is also for mentor. And it's really good to have this opportunity to share, to think, to take also some questions for yourself. So I really enjoyed this experience, and I really enjoyed the fact that it was cross-industry as well. This is something we emphasize a lot for mentees, but I must say that as a mentor, I also enjoyed very much this feature of the program.
Thank you very much. And Denis, I'm going to ask you the same question. Would you participate?
Sure. I will participate again. I would do something also, or at least I wish I can send some of my aspiring female leaders also to the program so that they can benefit from good mentors. So I really wish that a couple of our people can be mentees in this round. That was not the case in the round before. I'm participating again because, as I said, it's challenging, but it's also an opportunity to learn some lessons and to reflect on your own on my own leadership skills and also on the organizational maturity of our organization. maybe more casually, I think I find it. I was about to say recreational, so maybe that's the lunch part. So that word may not be fully appropriate, but it is. I think it's hopefully for the mentee and for the mentor. It's a bit of a neutral window. Open on a different different type of discussion with different perspective, hopefully not too transactional. It's a good pause, maybe more than a recreation. It's a good pause in the day, and I wish I can have more. So I think it's also a maybe more personal motivation beyond the more institutional part to participate again.
Great, thank you very much. So we have a couple of questions, and this is from Alfred Na. And he is in Beijing, and he says, I am a male, but I would like to join this mentorship program as a mentee. Am I eligible?
The program is designed for women, and actually even for women, you may see. So we created a website, and I would like to thank Nina Jiang from the EU Chamber and all the team around, because they are doing a fantastic job for that. Yeah. So we do have a specific website now. You have all the conditions to be eligible. And for cycle 2, we have the same condition as for cycle 1. It's being a woman. And the idea is like 30 to 45 year old, aspiring to a C-level position. So we wanted to have a certain focus to make sure that, that we could manage the program. So for cycle 2, we have the same focus as for cycle 1.
And we have a question also from Sophie Chen, and she said, how many mentees does the program accept?
That's a very good question. Denis, you are relaxed because now I'm going to answer the question.
I love it.
I'm up with one for you.
So we will have, which is not a complete answer, as many mentees as mentors. So we do have already quite some mentors, more than last year. We will have more than what we already have currently in our portfolio. We know because some already said yes, I'm in as well. And so the idea is to have one mentee for one mentor. So that won't be, I mean, last year, just to give you an idea, we had 8 mentees and 8 mentors. So that should be a bit more this year, but it is true that the program remains relatively exclusive so far. So there is a selection.
Okay, so I have a question here from Betty Liu, and she's saying, thank you all for sharing. I have a question. Have you ever felt that you encountered any cross-culture or language issues when you interact with the Chinese mentees? Or do you feel the culture and language issues sometimes can be barriers for the two sides to effectively interact with each other? What do you think, Denis?
So no language issues. We talk English, so at least that was not a problem. Yeah, if I were asked to do that in Chinese, then that would be a big problem. So not in that respect. Cultural issues, I think I mentioned that before. I think, yeah, you have to be mindful. You have to be mindful of how things work here. Mm-hmm. I mean, our organization here in China is almost 100% Chinese, so I'm one of the very few people that doesn't bear a Chinese passport here. So I would say that, at least for me, this is sort of daily, normal daily life to interact in a fully Chinese organization and to understand most of our clients that are also Chinese organizations. But I do recognize that there are some cultural issues around competition, around merits, around also different types of companies, around how to make progress in the multinational company, where obviously there is a glass ceiling, and that's not woman or male, that's for everyone. There is a glass ceiling sometimes for non-national or people coming from countries that are still regarded as not necessarily minority in terms of revenues, but minority in terms of the leadership contribution. So if I take my country, France, my country of origin, a lot of the French companies, although some of them have China as their biggest countries in terms of sales, revenues, or profit contribution, do not have Chinese in their board or even in several layers of leadership. Part of it is history, part of it is cultural in our own countries. I think the same holds true for Germany, even maybe more than France. And I think you see this across different international environments, in international companies. But then what does it tell in terms of how to make progress in an organization where either there is a big aspiration and opportunity if you can be visible because actually the organization is looking forward to diversify its leadership, or there is a certain ceiling which may be visible or not, or transparent, but really existing, and that needs to be overcome. So I think that would be one additional point.
Yeah, and I would complete on that. So just to give you a feedback. So on my side, no issue on the language or on cultural issues, but that was interesting also to touch upon those topics. And generally speaking, I think it is in the program, meaning that if we do see some cultural differences, they are also telling about and in a way I echo what Denis just said. They are also reflecting what we see in our respective organization. So again, this is about how do you communicate about China towards your headquarters? How do you make people realize the importance of the country, hence of the Chinese talents? And so obviously it's not one single person that will make things move, but if we are all working in this direction and at least being aware of the issue is interesting and something that we can work on in itself.
We have one more question, and we're coming almost to the end of our time. And this is someone who has applied to be in the program as a mentee, and she says, what do you mean and what do you need to prepare to, as a prospective mentor? Well, she's saying it from a mentor's perspective. Well, she's applying to be a mentee. So let's say, how would a mentee prepare?
But I mean, I will leave also the floor to Denis. Obviously, the idea because I was mentioning preparation, it's really about knowing what where you are and what you expect from this program. So what you are going to expect from your mentor. You need to be clear on obviously your aspiration, but also what you would expect from this relationship. But then you need to be focused. I mean, this is not a relationship where you will come and say, I have an issue, I'm not sure what to do, and nothing is precise. And at the end, we just discuss about, blur things. We need some elements, some ground to build some thoughts with you to actually try to make you progress, whatever the path you choose. But that's really about what do you have in mind. Don't come, even if it can be recreational, even if you can have a lunch, which is really nice, come with, some ideas to be discussed. It's important. Otherwise, it will be a nice moment, which is always positive. It is true, but with what you want is to think further about the next steps for you. How do you build them? And so to be challenged also on your own thoughts, your ideas, and how to go further. But then the answer really belongs to you. It's how to see things on that program and what do you expect from it and from your mentor. And Denis, feel free. Feel free to come your lunch, by the way.
No, I would say, as Charlotte said earlier in the conversation, we are not career advisors. So, I would not necessarily prepare the long or the short list of sort of immediate, I use this word several times, transactional issues, because I mean, we might have ideas, but it may not be fully relevant. First point. Second point, I would say what's useful is to list questions that the mentee would not be able to ask to anybody else. So I think that would be a good starting point. So I mean, and I didn't necessarily do this the first time, but that's my lesson learned. I would say, okay, what is it that you've never discussed but you wish to discuss? And okay, we as mentors may or may not be fit to have that discussion. So that's taking a bit of a risk, but at least that's making, if we can address some of these issues or discuss and together build some level of answer, then I think it makes the conversation even more valuable. And then I think I would suggest also taking a long-term perspective to this. So I think it's really okay. What is it that you're trying to achieve? Not with the mentoring. I mean in life. So I would not even limit it to career. I think in one of my conversations we discussed a bit the trade-off between family life and career opportunities around work-life balance, traveling, etc., and what it entails to take a bigger position with more exposure. And so I think that's a very good topic, and that's also, I think, something good to ask to people that are in leadership positions like Charlotte or myself and others, because we are people who sort of judge sometimes, assess for sure, but sometimes judge on the ability of people to take leadership roles. And so it's good to have a feeling, okay, how people react to a certain trade-off, how people react to a certain willingness and display of determination or lack thereof. I think it's good to collect that feedback, and it may not be the same in the company of the mentee, but at least it provides some perspective. And also, I think for us as leaders, it's useful to also remember that when we produce those judgments, there is a bit of a narrative and a rational underlying that we need to understand, and sometimes probably we don't.
Well, we're almost at the end of our time. It's gone so quickly. I want to thank you, Charlotte and Denis. Thank you for being so candid, so open. I think you've given us the true flavor of being with a mentor, and also the pleasure. You've given us a taste of what you've experienced, and clearly you're both very passionate about this program, and great representatives of the success of this initiative on behalf of the European Chamber. And I think everyone wishes you very great success in this program. It has such a fabulous direction and brings hope. So thank you all, and thank you for everyone who participated today. And alors, à la prochaine. The next time.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.